Hoover Dam spillway tunnels can carry water at 120 miles per hour, enough force to match everything pouring over Niagara Falls, moving through channels engineers buried underground where almost no one ever looks. That's what controlling a river actually means. Not stopping the water, but deciding exactly where it goes and exactly how fast. Every gate, every tunnel, every sensor is part of a system built around one problem so fundamental that engineers don't solve it, they just manage it. That's the segment that changes how you see every dam ever built. Dams look simple from the outside, a wall of concrete, a lake behind it. But the real story is what you cannot see. Hidden chambers drilled through bedrock, cooling pipes laced through billions of tons of curing concrete, sensors that have been reading stress levels for decades without a single day off, and gate systems that can redirect an entire river in minutes. Today we follow the water all the way through, from the moment it enters the reservoir to the instant it exits the spillway, and trace every piece of engineering that stands between a controlled release and a catastrophe downstream. A river is not a pipe. It floods in spring, runs low in drought, and surges without warning when a storm moves through mountains 200 kilometers upstream. For most of human history, that unpredictability was simply accepted. The idea that you could actually control a river, store its energy, release it on demand, required engineers to stop thinking about water as something to fight and start thinking about it as something to negotiate with. The negotiation begins not with concrete but with data. River gauges going back a century, flood maps showing the worst inundations on record, hydrological models projecting what happens in a 1,000-year storm event. Engineers calculate the worst-case flow the dam might ever face, then design for something worse still. They pull bedrock core samples from 100 meters down, checking for ancient faults. They model the lateral pressure of billions of liters pressing against the upstream face, not for 1 year, but for 100. Then before any of that engineering can be built, they have to do something that sounds almost theatrical: make the river disappear. Blast a diversion tunnel through the valley wall, line it with concrete, and force the entire river through it. For the first time in millennia, the riverbed goes dry. Workers move in. Construction begins. Everything that follows depends on getting that foundation right. The most consequential decision in any mega dam project happens before a single worker arrives on site. Geologists spend months on satellite imagery, regional fault maps, and seismic records. When they do come to a potential location, they bring core drilling rigs that bore straight through rock, pulling up cylindrical samples from 100 meters below the surface, streaked gray and brown, showing every crack and void. A dam foundation must resist not just the vertical weight above it, millions of tons of concrete, but the enormous horizontal thrust of water pressing against the upstream face for decades. The ideal site is a narrow gorge, steep valley walls on both sides, solid rock underneath. The narrower the gorge, the shorter the dam wall, and the less concrete required. This is why the world's greatest dams sit inside mountain canyons. The mountains do part of the work. Once a site is confirmed, engineers design what is called a grout curtain, a continuous underground wall of injected cement that fills every crack in the bedrock beneath and around the dam. Without it, water finds its way through the rock under the structure and erodes it from below in a process engineers call piping. Piping failures look stable on the surface right until they don't. The grout curtain is completely invisible once construction is complete. But it is as critical as anything above ground, the hidden foundation of the foundation. Building a massive concrete structure in the middle of an active river requires solving a problem most people never think about. Concrete generates heat as it cures. In a structure of ordinary scale, that heat dissipates harmlessly. In a structure the size of a dam, it has nowhere to go. If it builds unevenly, the dam develops thermal cracks, invisible pathways for water infiltration that can compromise the structure decades after the pour. Engineers address this by embedding cooling pipes directly in the concrete. Thousands of meters of steel tubing lace through each horizontal lift, carrying chilled water continuously until the concrete reaches stable temperature. It is the kind of detail that never appears in photographs of the finished structure, but without it the finished structure does not last. The dam rises in those horizontal lifts, carefully monitored pours, each one inspected before the next begins. For a gravity dam, the geometry of the cross-section determines everything. The base must be wide enough to prevent the structure from sliding forward under hydraulic load. The upstream face is nearly vertical. The downstream face slopes back to distribute load into the foundation. Every dimension is the answer to a calculated trade-off. Narrower saves material, wider adds safety margin. Once it is cast in concrete, that answer is permanent. This is the sequence that makes a mega dam remarkable, and it is worth following precisely. Water enters an intake structure and drops through a penstock, a steel pipe sometimes 10 meters in diameter, falling steeply toward the turbine hall far below. Height creates pressure. Pressure accelerates the water into a spiral casing that wraps around a Francis turbine, a wheel of precisely shaped blades engineered so incoming water strikes each one at exactly the angle needed to extract maximum rotational energy. The turbine spins. Connected directly above it, a generator rotor turns inside a magnetic field. That motion induces current. Electricity flows to the grid. The efficiency of this conversion is what sets hydropower apart. Modern hydro turbines convert 90 to 95% of the water's energy into electricity. Coal plants convert roughly 30 to 40% of their fuel energy. Moving water through a shaped blade is simply more efficient than burning something and capturing heat. China's Three Gorges Dam sits at the far end of the scale. Its powerhouse contains 32 main turbine generator units, each rated at 700 megawatts, plus auxiliary plant units at total installed capacity exceeding 22,500 megawatts. That is enough generating capacity to supply tens of millions of homes, running continuously as long as water flows. It remains the largest single power station ever built. A dam that could only store water would be among the most dangerous structures ever built. The real engineering sophistication is in what lets operators control exactly how much water leaves, at what speed, and through which path, and what happens when those decisions have to be made in the middle of a flood. Every dam has outlet works, pipes and tunnels embedded in the dam body, each equipped with gates or valves. At depth, a gate the size of a shipping container may be holding back water at several atmospheres of pressure. Operating it requires hydraulic actuators, redundant power systems, and remote monitoring, because if a gate fails closed during a flood, the water has nowhere to go. If it fails open, communities downstream can be hit with no warning at all. Above the outlet works, most large dams have a spillway, a dedicated channel that routes excess water safely away when the reservoir approaches maximum capacity. This is not a failure mode. It is part of the designed operating range. In a heavy rain year, with tributaries flooding and snowpack melting faster than the powerhouse can process, even a large reservoir can fill faster than expected. The spillway takes that overflow, routes it down a concrete chute or through a flip bucket, and dissipates its energy before it reaches the river. Auxiliary spillways go further. Designed for once-in-centuries floods, they are the dam's last line of defense. Modern control rooms manage all of this with digital displays, redundant sensors, automated alarms, and operators on shift around the clock. Under the weight of billions of tons of water, a concrete dam is not static. It flexes by millimeters, but measurably. It heats and cools with the seasons. The foundation below settles incrementally over years. All of this movement has to be tracked continuously, because unexpected deformation is how a dam tells you something is wrong before anything breaks. Modern mega dams are instrumented throughout. Extensometers measuring crack width, piezometers measuring water pressure inside the concrete and the foundation, tiltmeters tracking the angle of the dam face, seismometers detecting nearby earthquakes, strain gauges embedded during construction, and still reporting stress decades later. This data streams continuously to monitoring systems that compare readings against baseline models. When a reading deviates, an alarm triggers. Most of the time it is a sensor drifting out of calibration, but occasionally it is a pattern water pressure rising unexpectedly in a section of the foundation, a tiltmeter moving in a direction it should not. When that happens, engineers do not wait. They lower the reservoir, reducing pressure on the suspect section, and send inspection crews into the drainage galleries with cameras and measurement equipment. That capacity to act on early signals is what separates modern dam engineering from the era when failures were discovered only after the fact. The sensors embedded in a dam built today are rated for a 100-year service life, designed to outlast the engineers who installed them, and to keep reading long after those engineers are gone. In a world debating how to decarbonize electricity generation at scale, hydropower tends to get less attention than solar panels or wind turbines, and carries more weight than either. By end of 2025, global installed hydropower capacity had reached over 1,460 gigawatts, more than any other renewable source, per the International Hydropower Association's 2025 status report. In a single year, the world added roughly 28 gigawatts of new capacity. But the more consequential development is pumped storage hydropower, two reservoirs at different elevations. When electricity demand is low and solar generation is high, operators pump water from the lower to the upper reservoir, storing energy as gravitational potential. When demand spikes and the panels go quiet at dusk, they release that water back through turbines and generate on demand. Global pump storage capacity has now surpassed 200 gigawatts, with a further 243 gigawatts under construction. That is not incidental. It is the storage infrastructure that makes it physically possible to run a power grid primarily on intermittent renewables. The mega dam is not a relic of the industrial age. In the architecture of a decarbonized grid, it is one of the most valuable assets that exists. Every mega dam reshapes the landscape permanently. The costs are visible for anyone willing to look. Reservoirs flood valleys. Roads, farms, and villages go underwater, in some cases displacing communities that had lived in the same place for generations. A sediment delta builds slowly at the upstream end, as silt that once traveled freely down the river settles to the bottom year by year. Engineers use sluicing gates and periodic flushing operation to route sediment-laden water through lower outlets during floods, but none of it fully replicates what the natural river did. Drive to the upstream end of almost any large reservoir and you will see it, a shallow mudflat where the original river channel used to run. Downstream, the fish ladder is the most visible symbol of the mitigation effort, a stepped channel of shallow pools on the side of the dam, designed so migratory species can reach spawning grounds their ancestors reached for thousands of years. Effectiveness varies widely by species and dam height. For high-head structures and certain species, it remains an unsolved engineering problem. These are not arguments against dams. They are engineering problems the best facilities work seriously to manage. The honest accounting of a mega dam includes both the gigawatts generated and the valley transformed, the controlled sediment flushing and the accumulation that happens between operations, the fish ladder and the species it does not help. The engineers who build them, at least the best ones, hold both realities in mind simultaneously. The goal is not a perfect outcome. It is the best achievable trade-off, understood clearly, managed carefully, and monitored for as long as the structure stands. A mega dam is not a wall. It is a control system, a network of gates, sensors, turbines, and hidden passages that negotiates with one of the most powerful forces on Earth, every second of every day. From the grout curtain injected into bedrock before a single form is set, to the 100-year sensors still reading stress in concrete long after the engineers who poured it are gone, the sophistication of these structures is matched only by the responsibility they carry. Over 1,460 gigawatts of generating capacity worldwide, more than 243 gigawatts of pump storage under construction. The mega dam is still being built, and the world still needs it. What happens when the sensors miss something? When a dam fails and the water behind it moves faster than anything downstream can survive? The next video goes inside a real collapse. Subscribe so you don't miss it.